Cuentos del Abuelito. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. On this occasion, I'll be narrating a few stories that were sent to my email address. If you have any request or if you would like to listen to one of your favorite stories on this channel, leave the story in a comment below or send me an email. Just remember to leave a like and a comment for like support and all that type of thing. With that being said, let's get started.
Story number 1. I slept in a haunted house.
I'm not the type of person who worries about superstitions and ghost stories. I am the type of girl who looks for a logical explanation for everything, and the last one to believe in all those urban legends and things like that are shared on the internet. I'm the type of girl who instantly debunks any paranormal experiences you've ever had or believed to have. However, as much as I have tried to find a logical way out of what I'm going to tell you next, I must confess I haven't been able to do so. It all started when some friends invited me to spend the night in their house, an old property from the 1900s. Recently restored and in a gothic style, a real ghost house. Often, its inhabitants commented that on more than one occasion they had seen a lady appear in the basement. Of course, I did not believe them. They always wanted to scare everyone. By the time night came, the pajama party had gotten interesting. We started drinking some wine, passing popcorn around, and started eating a lot of junk food. We played board games and even told a few horror stories. Then it got time to go to bed, and I settled down to rest inside my sleeping bag. I woke up at dawn after hearing some noises. I concentrated on the sound and realized it was coming from the kitchen. My friend was not next to me. I assumed that perhaps she got up to use the bathroom or perhaps to start breakfast. I put on my slippers and climbed down to catch up with her as the noise from the kitchen got louder. Now not only could I clearly hear someone handling pots and frying something in the pan, but I also was able to smell the intense smell of bacon cooking and eggs sizzling alongside the bacon. However, once I peeked into the kitchen, all the sounds stopped. Suddenly, I could still smell the breakfast in the air, but the room was empty and completely dark. The utensils remained in their places, and there was nothing on the stove. I was paralyzed. It would have been easier to believe that I was dreaming, but the truth is that I know that that wasn't the case. Still, I went back to my room to try to convince myself that I had imagined things. The next day, the comments from my best friend's brother assured me it wasn't a dream because he complained. He began to complain to us that he had not been able to sleep because of all the noise we made. My friend made a face not understanding, but I did understand what he was talking about. Since I had this experience, I have to admit that there may be some things outside of our understanding. Apparently, the woman who lived in that house continues to live in it in some way.
Story number 2.
So me and my two buddies were having one of those nights where you just party hard, have a few drinks, and just cruise around. Now this was about a month ago, and we were roof hopping in downtown, but eventually we decided to continue drinking and leave the area because we made kind of a mess from being dickheads. But that's not the crazy part. My friend, we'll call him Brock for insurance purposes, remembered that there was a shut down hotel on the north side of town, so we cracked a few more beers and we were off. My friend Roger, also for insurance purposes, was the one driving. He had parked a few streets away from the hotel, so if we had to make a quick getaway, we wouldn't be at the scene of the crime for long. Brock had pulled out 2 long boards and 1 skateboard so we could get there a little faster than on foot. Now this part of the town is so sketchy that I should know. I used to live a few streets away and had some bad experiences with drugs and meth labs. So I should have been nervous, but the liquid confidence took over. When we got to the hotel, we noticed that the front was bolted shut. So we decided to sneak to the north side of the building where the side door was. Now, the door was locked previously, but someone decided to unlock it with force. When I walked through the door, I saw it was completely trashed. It had yet to be spray painted, but I figured that it'll happen soon enough. Now, we were pretty excited to be in this place. We cruised on our boards throughout the building. Me and Brock climbed up the stairs to this little building in the middle of the room area. I would guess it was the manager's office, but I couldn't say for sure. Now, it was pretty cool to be on the top and seeing all of the rooms, but I got off pretty quick. The excitement was ruined by my fear of falling. So me and Roger just cruised around a bit till Brock got down from the manager's room. But Roger was getting pretty sketched out because Brock had told us previously that a bunch of crackheads camp out in the hotel rooms. Though I didn't think it was true till I noticed some of the rooms had lights and muffled noise coming from them. At this point, Brock was in front of me and Roger was behind me. We were headed towards the lobby when Brock had slid his board towards the hallway. A stupid decision in my opinion. And that's when I saw him. A large dark figure that must have been 6'5" towered over Brock. I was in shock. I looked at Roger and said, "Run!" Brock must have got the message cause all 3 of us bolted out of there. I had hopped on the longboard and sped to the door. We got to the door and we all hopped off our boards and sprinted to the tall grass in the field. I must have had an adrenaline rush because I've never ran that fast in my life. When we got clear of that man or ghost or whatever it was, we all had to pause to catch our breath. It was all pretty terrifying, but at the same time a thrill. We started to make our way back to the car and everything seemed good. When we got to the car, we noticed a ladder leading to the roof of a building that sold donuts. When I got to the roof, I laid there and just looked at the stars in relief. Luckily, we made it with no casualties.
Story number 3.
Since I can remember, I have been obsessed with the paranormal shit. Due to my inquisitive nature, I have always been drawn to the study of ghosts and spirits. When I think about how it all started, I remember my parents. They used to tell me horror stories before I went to sleep, even when they worried that such stories would give me nightmares. I insisted and loved every minute of that brief horror. I remember camping with my family and having sleepovers with friends in which we told ghost stories to each other in an attempt to scare those around us. As the years passed, my passion for the supernatural grew and grew. Usually once fall started, my interest was at its peak. However, in the immediate winter months, my interest returned to the focus of things of my daily life. I worked for an industrial company handling numbers. I spent day after day, hour after hour, capturing data and printing spreadsheets for my bosses. It's not the best job in the world, but it's definitely not the worst either. And the pay is decent. Decent enough to allow me to have my own car and a small house. I bought my first property last year and spent most of my time making repairs to it. This is how I managed to get it at a affordable price for my salary. When I acquired the place, it was quite run down. Sure, it was still livable, but it did need renovations. Hell, I didn't even invite anyone to visit me for the first few months out of embarrassment. Every one of my payments was invested in fixing and remodeling my house. Until month after month, the need to invest my salary was less and less. After changing the floor, painting the wall, fixing the electrical power and the air conditioning, the house began to look like a suitable place. I really missed that place. A couple of months ago, I was watching a television show about a group of paranormal investigators traveling the world and exploring dark places in hopes of capturing a spirit on video. This type of reality, as exaggerated as it may be, is very entertaining for me. Sure, many of them are fake and push over the top resources to the limits, like turning any noise into something terrifying, a footfall here and there, a drag on something on the ground, a door closing occasionally can all lead to hysteria. It gets kind of funny after a while. Anyway, my favorite part of these shows are the EVPs, that is, electric voice phenomenon. Basically, the researchers take out a voice recorder in an empty room, asking a few questions out loud while recording, and when they listen to the recording, voices from another world can be heard speaking through it. While I know these recordings are bogus to some degree, the idea of being able to hear supernatural voices appealed to me greatly. You know, the possibility of having physical evidence in my hands that something else exists on the other side. The program I was watching mentioned their social network at the end, and when I investigated them, I discovered that they also had their own website where they sold the equipment used in the show. While most of the equipment was out of my budget, I didn't really see the need to buy something like hypersensitive infrared camera. I did see something that caught my eye. They were those digital recorders they used for EVP sessions. Some of them were quite expensive, exposing hundreds of different buttons and functions. Still others only had the basics. The simplest cost at around $40. I didn't know what prompted me to buy it. The thoughts that I could finally satisfy my old passion, perhaps. Or maybe I was just making a stupid decision. Anyway, I bought the item and actually forgot about it until someone knocked on my door. I spent the afternoon reading the instructions that came with the device. Simple instructions for use and maintenance. I tried them all that same night. I stayed up until dawn asking questions, playing the static sound, and repeating it over and over. When the sun outside turned orange, revealing that the sun was rising, I decided to get some sleep, relieved that I didn't have to go to work that day. A while later, when I got up, I looked back at the tape recorder that I had bought, and I considered that my house might not have been haunted in the first place. So my failure to capture something was looking good. I have never experienced or felt anything paranormal since I moved in, but I still couldn't be certain. After dressing and getting ready for the afternoon, I noticed that I had left the set next to my bed recording while I was asleep. Chuckling, I wondered if I could hear myself snoring or even talking between dreams. So I rewinded the recording to a random point and hit the play button. For about 30 seconds I was not able to hear anything. Then I made out a dragging sound, like sheets being thrown around. Another minute passed and I was about to turn off the recorder when I heard something else. It sounded like a whisper. After playing it multiple times, I made out what it said.
I see you.
To say that I was in shock would be an understatement. Hearing that voice sent shivers down my spine like I've never felt before. As I considered the possibility that it might be myself talking in my sleep, I didn't feel like that was the case though. I spent the rest of the afternoon listening to the recording in detail, and there were only 4 occasions when a voice was recorded. I'm not sure if it was the same.
He's there. Watch him. I see you. You cannot escape.
Each one was scarier than the last. I wasn't sure what to do at this point. I was thinking over and over it until I considered filming myself one more time in my sleep just to be sure. I went to sleep early that night. The sun was still high in the sky, although it descended rapidly. I quickly made sure every door and window was closed before turning on my tape recorder and going to sleep. I was woken up at 2 in the morning by something. I couldn't say for sure, but I felt like I was in danger. I sat on my bed, drenched in cold sweat and looking around my room. I remember asking out loud if someone was with me, but I didn't get a signal. It was harder to fall asleep the second time, but eventually I made it. And upon awakening, I quickly plugged in my headphones into the recorder and played back what had been recorded that night. I was only to hear it twice. The first thing I made out was the sound of my bed door opening. I know for a fact that I bolted every door. Still, the sound of the door opening was as clear as day. About 30 minutes after that, I heard the first voice.
He's there.
Again, the same voice from the night before. I continued with the recording without listening to anything for an hour. The next voice I heard said,
Help me.
To me, it sounded like someone was asking to be saved from something, although I can't truly assure that was the case. The next sentence still gives me chills when I think about it. It was a reason I woke up in the middle of the night, the voice said.
Hold him, now.
It was almost as if an order was issued, my own execution order. Then I could hear myself agitated and wondering if there was someone there with me. The answer I heard to that question made my blood run cold.
50 of us are here.
The thought of 50 spirits in my room, watching me as I slept, terrified me. The following week, I put my house up for sale and moved into a 1-bedroom apartment. I no longer have any kind of interest in the paranormal, and if anyone out there is interested in ghosts, be careful. I don't know if my obsession with the supernatural opened any doors for the spirits, or if they were there all the time, silent and waiting for someone to talk to them. Ever since I heard that recording, I can't help but feel constantly being watched. They constantly haunt me. I may have to search for a new apartment soon, as I am beginning to hear my door opening and closing in the middle of the night. I hope you guys really like the stories, and I'll leave you with Grandpa's advice. Never record yourself alone at night while you're sleeping. You may not like what you find. Until the next time, stay safe and vigilant.